when I found out yesterday, heard the grapevine. Ooh.
Hello and welcome. Mickey and I are going to be hopefully reading you a few questions. Mickey's going to lend all her support, aren't you, Mickey? And regrettably, because of the ongoing Meghan and Harry saga, this is what people seem to want to hear about. I am hoping very shortly to be able to divert into what I regard as equally interesting matters. But I do understand where a lot of people are coming from, that this really is a car crash in the making, and that people are transfixed by what is going to happen, what has happened, what does it mean, what are the consequences. So if I may, I will plunge in with the questions. The first one is from Alexandra Orff. Dear Lady C, I admire you so and never miss any of your videos. I wanted to ask this. Do you think it's possible that Meghan and Harry are actually going on Oprah to put on an act by being nice and saying all positive things about the royal family, only to improve their tarnished public image, and even to attempt to fool the Queen into not stripping them of their Duke and Duchess titles? Thank you. Well, that's a really interesting take on things, especially in light of the previous video. Yes, I think that they have been scrambling, hoping to preserve their positions, such as they are. They were hoping to keep their royal patronages. They were hoping to cling on to whatever bit of residual royal status they have. They were hoping that they would not actually be relegated to regal Siberia the way they now have been, now that they have been stripped of their patronages. They were, according to what I was told, and of course we'll now never know because I gather the whole thing has been recut and re-edited, that the interview went one way and the finished product is actually going to go another, because they were relying very heavily, as I have previously said, on their royal patronages and, the one or two, because it was only really one or two links that they still had to the monarchy, to boost their selling power. I don't know, in fact, Alexandra Orff, if I would have said that they were trying to convince the Queen to keep their Duke and Duchess titles, because at the moment these titles are intact. There is a movement behind the scenes, and it is a growing movement, and it is a movement that has been carefully laid over the last several months to encourage Harry and Meghan to step down, not only as non-working royals, but as regal entrepreneurs, by divesting themselves willingly of their royal status and of their royal titles, and to get him to encourage him to step out of the line of succession. Because, I mean, the reality is it would be an absolute disaster if William and Charles should die and Harry should end up being a councillor of state and aiming to be a regent, because I can tell you something, Meghan would move heaven and earth to make sure that she was the princess regent, because of course Harry would be the prince regent. And you can just see her flaunting herself for all it's worth. I mean, then she'd be pregnant with diamonds, not just royal babies. And she'd be waddling like a duck throughout the world in much the same way that she has flaunted her regal bumps. But at the moment, stripping them of their titles is not actually on the table. It's hoped that Harry will do the decent thing and will want, since he is effectively semi-detached, that he would like to detach himself even further. It will give them the freedom that they will otherwise never have. And then, if they get themselves into scrapes and if they manage their charitable activities with the expectations that their detractors think will happen, well, then they will at least have averted something of the ignominy that they will otherwise endure, because I can tell you something, if they get caught up in a really unsavory scandal, especially over money and monetization, the Crown will have very little choice but to divest him of his regal status and certainly of his succession to the throne, which is actually his birthright, and in fact only he can divest himself of. He needs to renounce his right of succession to the throne. It can't be taken away from him. Taking away the title Duke of Sussex is not an easy proposition either. It requires an act of Parliament. It requires all the political parties in the country, the establishment, the Crown. It requires the royal family. It requires the media, everybody effectively to be behind it, with maybe a few opponents. But unless there is an overwhelming cry for this to happen, it is going to be an extremely difficult thing to pull off. So it's not really a danger to Harry at this point. But as I said, there are, and have been for some time now, movements behind the scenes to have him do the decent thing. Let's see if he does. Next question. Nicola Wildman. Always a pleasure listening to you, Lady C, and you look radiant. Thank you very much, Nicola Wildman. Do you think the Queen is playing her cards close to her chest regarding these ingrates and just waiting to see what tripe they come out with? Sorry. I love it. Tripe is right. I personally would rather have my teeth pulled out than listen to those two jokers. Oh gosh. Nicola Wildman, you are a con. Oh gosh, you've made me laugh. Thank you so much. Oh gosh, yes, well, I find listening to them extremely distasteful. I mean, it's interesting that they have the knack of opening up their mouths and alienating any doubters who were wavering as to whether they disliked them or not. You know, I don't know if all of you are old enough to remember Dale Carnegie, How to Win Friends and Influence People. This was a huge book in the 40s, 50s, and 60s. I think it must have been in the 40s, but certainly the 50s and 60s. How to Win Friends and Influence People. Well, I think Harry and Meghan could write the Duke and Duchess of Sussex's Guide to Alienating People, Losing Respect, and actually antagonizing even those who wish to support them. And I count myself in that number because I would love to be able to support them. I really would love to. However, everything they do makes me know without the shadow of a doubt that unless they get personality implants, there is no way that's going to happen. And yes, the Queen is playing her cards very close to her chest. You know, the royal family has been around for an awfully long time. Our monarchy has survived where many other monarchies have fallen. There is a reason why our monarchy has survived. It trims its sails according to the wind. There only needs to be enough of a gust of wind to warn of a hurricane for the British royal family to batten down their hatches, change course, and head for the safest harbour. And make no mistake about it, when the chips are down, the Queen and Prince William will, irrespective of their personal feelings, make the appropriate choice. And you might notice I have not mentioned Prince Charles in that number. And I'm not going to, because I am not convinced that Prince Charles has the mettle and the backbone and the qualities of character that require him to make really painful decisions where his family is concerned. Now, that actually, on some level, is a testament to his good-heartedness, also a testament to the soft underbelly with which no gladiator can afford to go into the ring with his soft underbelly unprotected. So we will have to wait and see what happens, but I would not be predicting that the Duke and Duchess of Sussex are going to lose their titles any time soon. Certainly not being shorn of them. But there is, as I said, the hope that he will voluntarily divest himself of his royal status. Whether that is actually a feasible hope is something else again. Because, let me tell you, I'm no fool, and I'm sure most of you aren't either, otherwise you wouldn't be listening to me, because fools have no patience where I'm concerned, and I have none for them either. The fact of the matter is that there is no way Meghan would have married Mr. Henry Windsor with his limited intelligence, his soppy, self-important posturing, his propensity to over-egg the pudding at every turn and to throw fits as if he is a 6-month-old baby who doesn't know how to speak and therefore has to shriek. Had he been Mr. Henry Windsor, penniless, I would bet my bottom dollar that she wouldn't have given him the time of day. I don't even think she'd have spat near him. I think she'd have thought her spittle was far too good for the likes of him. So I don't think that we should hold our breaths and wait for him to be anything but discouraged from divesting himself of his royal status, because that is his only calling card at this point, and that is, in my view, and I could be doing her a grave injustice, the primary attraction, always was and always will be. Now, next question. Anne Willett. When Harry said Meghan would have, with the royal family, a family she had never had, 3 question marks. OMG, which I would imagine is oh my God. Why didn't he pick up on her deceitful nature that she had a family and discarded them like she has now done with Harry's family? Well, I think the short answer is lack of brains, lack of judgment, over-emotionalism, and he was desperate to be loved. He had been desperate to find himself a woman who would love him. Cressida Bonus, I know through personal connections, ended up, even though she liked Harry as a person, desperate to run away. The idea of being Princess Henry of Wales, Duchess of Sussex, was no compensation for putting up with a hissy-fitting drama queen of 6 foot something who was always, oh, the press is after me. Oh, the press is after me. Harry, where are the press? Well, they're just after me. You know, the flagrant, rampant self-importance was a real turn-off. That, of course, is because Cressida Bonus, and before her, Chelsea Davy, are real people who wanted a real relationship with a real man. Harry has charm. Harry's quite attractive of a certain type. He used to be actually much more attractive than he is since he became a male pussycat. And we can scratch out the word cat if you want. He used to be quite physically attractive. He had appeal as somebody you'd want to go to bed with. And he was very enthusiastic. he had appeal for somebody you would like to have had a romance with, because there would have been pleasures both vertical and horizontal. However, his rampant self-importance, his paranoia, and paranoia is not only extreme self-importance and look, everybody's after me. It's, oh, look, there's the press. Everybody, the press is after me. Harry, there's been no press around for the last 27 minutes. In fact, there's been no press around for the last 27 hours. Yes, but they're still there. They're still there. Look, behind that tree. Harry, there isn't a tree there. Not only is there not a tree there, Harry, there's not a tree around for the next 2 acres. Oh, but if you go further back, I mean, people don't want to deal with all of that rubbish, you know? They really don't. Except if they're self-important, self-aggrandizing, fame junkies, which Meghan is. Harry's posturing and Harry's drama queenism was like manna from heaven for Meghan. And her need to always be the center of attention, to always promote herself, to push her way forward, and to drag him along in her wake as she exploits his status, was an answer to his prayers. Do you see one of the dynamics of why that relationship works so well? It is Narcissus and Echo. Perfectly matched. Perfectly matched. Next question is from Golden X Boots. That's obviously an underplume. Dear Lady C, thank you for your insights. My pleasure. Ending the video on a cliffhanger. If Harry would be demoted to Earl, would he still be allowed to join official functions with other Earls? Or would he not be welcomed in their circle? Harry, my dear, is welcome in a very few decent establishment circles in this country any longer, because he is a member of the royal family, and even if he should be demoted, he would still have been born royal. He would still be ultimately the son, the grandson, and the brother of monarchs. He will always have a degree of status which will make him tolerable to people socially, even at the very moment that they despise him. That's the way society works. You don't have to like all of your friends, as Julian Fellows has pointed out on more than one occasion, both privately and in his books. There are many people in society who choose their friends according to social position. And Harry, even if he were demoted to Mr. Henry Windsor, would still have an eminent social position. So he will always be acceptable, but that is not the same thing as desirable. What is happening with Harry seems to be going to be far more protracted, and I would imagine irrevocable rendering of what happened to his mother when she was cast out into the royal wilderness. all establishment doors were slammed in her face, except for the few friends that she had and people who genuinely had liked her. Then she would appear at events and she would sail up to people and speak to them, and they would speak to her. When she spoke to me, I would speak to her. I was perfectly happy to speak to her. Oh, and I disapproved of her a lot less, I've got news for you, than many of my peers who really despised her and absolutely really disapproved with a violence that you would find hard to believe. Well, Harry is shaping up to be the latter-day version of his mother, with as much pariah status as she ended up possessing. There is a big difference between fame, infamy, social acceptability, and tolerance. And if you are grand enough, you will be tolerated even at the very moment that you are despised and denigrated. So I hope that answers the question, because I will actually finalize by making one point. There is no association of earls that I'm aware of. And one of my many times great-grandfathers was an earl. So I've never been aware of the fact that there was ever an association of earls. And the earls don't gather together as if there's a club of earls. Society, as it used to be called, divides up into those who are socially acceptable and those who aren't, and those who are socially desirable and those who aren't. Those who are socially unacceptable receive no invitations. Those who are socially acceptable but socially undesirable will receive some invitations, and they will be in attendance at some events. But it's rather like a tramp stepping off the street with a beer, walking into a fine gathering. There is usually a cordon sanitaire, and only very charitable people, or those who care enough about social position to suck up to the undesirable, will be wasting any of their time going up to people like that and speaking to them. So I suppose what I'm really saying in a nutshell is Harry has a very unenviable fate in store for him, as long as he wishes to function amongst serious people in this country. Let's see what happens in America, because the Americans are far more gullible in terms of what is socially, and now I'm not referring now to the American people generally, I'm referring to the social elites in America. They are far more gullible and far more accepting of the unacceptable. And therefore, people get a free pass in America that they don't get here. And our last question for the night is going to be from My Thoughts Will Offend You. Oh, how entertaining. Well, that's rather what we want. A little bit of provocation. So, from My Thoughts Will Offend You, I still, big block capitals, don't understand why it is that they want to be heard about anything. Heard by whom? About what? What world important things do Harry and Meghan have to tell us about? Why do they feel so important? And it has about 27 O's, actually, without exaggerating, it has about 9. The arrogance and ignorance of those two is baffling. Well, I think this is a very, very good question to ask. What indeed do Harry and Meghan have to teach us? Because, of course, they have recently informed the world that they have powerful messages to give, and they are going to educate and inform us. Well, he is going to educate us. I mean, he couldn't even pass his exams at school without such extraordinary help that he got eaten in trouble. I mean, as for her, she couldn't even pass her State Department exams, and they can pass an awful lot of wind, that's for sure. But what qualifications do they have for setting themselves up as patronious arbiters? These great sages, these great philosophers, these great founts of wisdom, they have no right to do it. They have no status for doing it. Being a minor royal, even being a senior royal, which they're not and actually never really were, never qualified them for lecturing the public. Royalty does not customarily lecture the public. Royalty, if anything, listens to the lectures of the public. It is a great misnomer for Harry and Meghan to think that because they once possessed an elevated status, which they no longer do possess, that entitles them to really break wind on us from all directions and in all quarters. The truth is, unless you are brain dead, ignorant, because you can be ignorant without being brain dead, completely naive, or a category of person that admires the unadmirable, there is nothing that Harry and Meghan have to teach us except what we should avoid being. This couple has anything of any substance to teach us is beyond laughable. This is a woman who breaks wind through her mouth and stinks up the world with platitudes like love will conquer all, and you've got to feel love, and you've got to be compassionate, and you've got to love everybody. But I'm going to sue my father. I'm going to sue this. I'm going to sue that. I'm going to shut up my father. I'm going to write a nasty letter to my father. I'm going to get friends of mine to leak it to People magazine. And when my father tries to defend himself, I'm going to sue the newspaper. But I'm not going to sue people. I'm not going to sue people. No, no, no. I mean, the hypocrisy. Why would we want to learn anything about love from somebody who clearly doesn't know the meaning of the word? And why would we want to learn about compassion from somebody who has none, who has a disabled half sister who she has iced on her way up ever since she got allied to a prince. Why would we wish to listen to a dolt like Harry, who breaks wind in our faces with all sorts of word salad platitudes that mean nothing? I mean, darling, if you couldn't pass basic exams at school, who the heck do you think you are, teaching people who are educated, intelligent, and far your superiors? Your superiors. We are your superiors. How dare you set yourself up as our superiors? Know your place. Back off. And on that note, I will say thank you very much for listening. Please keep the questions coming in. And please remember to like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and share. Thank you very much from me and from Mickey. Mickey, say goodbye. Thank you very much and goodbye.